Okay, so welcome to a rainy day in my car. I just thought I would take a moment today to talk about something I've been getting into recently, which is film emulation. So an issue or a complaint that a lot of people are having these days about modern digital cameras is that they're just too sharp. The image is too good, which is funny to say, but in a way it's true. The cameras are just so good. They're so high resolution that the footage is just tack sharp, and it's just a bit too realistic to the point where you almost want to soften that image down, and people do a lot of things like that in camera, like with adding pro mist filters to the front or just adding different ways to diffuse the image to make it look a bit softer, more like film, which of course is the original standard. So yeah, I've been getting into this a little bit, adding grain into my videos, adding LUTs that have that look that's supposed to emulate film stocks, and I really am liking how it looks. And just by coincidence, a company reached out to me the other day called Dehancer, which is actually a plugin for DaVinci Resolve, which is like the golden standard for color grading in the industry, and they basically just said, check out our product, it emulates film stocks, and immediately I was like, sweet, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So let's jump into the computer and check it out. So basically this is Dehancer's website, and as you can see, they have some really cool tools added into Dehancer Pro, and unfortunately it is only available in DaVinci Resolve, which like I said is the industry standard for color grading, so that makes sense, but I wish it was available in Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. But regardless, it's $399, which is quite pricey for a plugin, but when you take a look at it and see what it does, I think you'll kind of be able to justify that price and it will kind of make sense. But the good thing is, if you don't have DaVinci Resolve or you want to get into color grading, that program is completely free, so you can get into that, you can edit in it. It's a really great program if you don't have any money, so definitely look into DaVinci Resolve. But with that said, let's jump into it. Okay, so now as you can see, I'm inside of DaVinci Resolve, basically in the Edit tab. So I'm gonna go over to the Coloring tab where pretty much everything happens in this platform. And the first thing I'm gonna do is go into this node right here, and I'm just gonna drag in Dehancer. So scroll to the very bottom of your library. If you import it, it's gonna be under here, Film Emulation, and you can just drag Dehancer Pro onto this node. And immediately it's gonna apply some effects to it. Now at the top of the settings for Dehancer, you can see there's these different settings for input and film looks, but personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the looks that they include. I personally like to use my own LUTs, which are called the Phantom LUTs, and they have these great emulations for Sony cameras. So I just like to add those LUTs on top of my image and then use Dehancer to add some different things like grain and halation. So let me just do that right now. So first things first, like I said, I don't like the film looks. As you can see, there's some different Kodak looks. There's a bunch of different things you can apply to your image, but I just don't really love how they look. So I'm just gonna go and disable that right there. And now I'm just going to right click on my clip and go to LUT and apply the Eastman LUT, which is one of my favorites. So as you can see, just immediately makes the image look really nice. Looks like a pretty good film stock from Eastman. So now I'm gonna go in Dehancer and change a few more things. So scrolling down past expand, print, I just skip all that stuff, color head, skip that. Now we get to the good stuff, film grain. So this is what you've been waiting for. If I zoom in a bit here, we can actually see what's going on. So as you can see, there is a bit of film grain applied right now to the image. You can see it here and there. But what I'm gonna do is reduce the amount to actually 0 right here. And then what you can do is change the amounts of grain more or less in the shadows, midtones, and highlights section. So I like to bring the shadows and midtones down and then keep the highlights a bit higher because I like that grain in those highlights. It helps to retain some of the dynamic range in the image and just looks better. So as you can see, if we enable and disable that, we're getting a little bit of grain. I might just add just a touch more here just to make the image a little more grainy. So now if we go down more in Dehancer settings, we get into some good stuff that isn't available in other platforms. So like I can't do halation in Final Cut Pro, so that's where this program gets really, really cool. So as we can see here, halation has all these different settings, and if we enable it, you'll be able to see a little bit of what it does. So it's a little bit hard to see right now, but that's kind of the point of all these effects inside of this film emulation platform. You don't want it to be blatantly obvious what's going on. You just want to add little subtle touches to imply that filmic look, and I think Dehancer does that really well. So let's just amplify this all the way, amplify the halation just so you can see what it does. Now you can start to see there's these red outlines happening around the areas where darkness or lines hit bright highlight spots. So as you can see, this tree, it's all lit up in this red color because there's highlights all around it. This hat, there's some highlights around here, so it has this little red outline. And as you can see, it kind of just goes around the image in these spots. So on this car, you can see there's this little bit of red on these corners here where the highlights turn into darkness or vice versa. And it just adds a really filmic look that is hard to describe, but it's really common in film footage. So that just looks really good, but of course I don't like to blast it that much. And again, in halation, if I click this little mask mode here, you can see exactly what it's doing. So where it's adding it, where it doesn't have it, that sort of thing. So that's just kind of cool to see. And then I'm gonna lower this way down. So I think the impact I bring down to like 80 or something like that. And then the amplify, I like to keep it at like 25. Again, very subtle. If I turn it on and off, you can almost not even see it existing, but it's just enough to add a little bit of tint to the edges of the image, which really makes it look more filmic. Okay, and then scrolling down, the next thing I add is bloom, which looks really good. It basically imitates like a pro mist filter, so it basically blooms out the highlights, just makes the image look a lot softer. So if we enable this right here, you can immediately see what it does to those highlights on the part of the image. So I like the settings it keeps it at. I pretty much just lower the amplification to like 25, like the halation. So we don't want too much, but as you can see, it just adds a little bit of that bloomy look to your image, softening it, making it look more pleasing and less tack sharp. And then finally to the image, I'll just enable some vignette just to add a little bit of darkness to the outskirts of the image. Nothing too drastic, but now as you can see, if I turn off dehancer, off and on, there's not a huge difference in the look. And if I zoom into like 100%, you can see off and on, there are some differences made to the image. It makes it a little bit softer and just more enjoyable to look at, but it's not drastic. And that's the whole point of this plugin. You want it to look really natural, really subtle, and like it was actually shot in the camera. So I'm really pleased with how this shot looks. And if we play it back, you can see that it does lag quite a bit. Even on quick computers, I'm only getting like 5 frames per second playback. So it takes a long time to export and to edit in this platform because it is so heavy on all these grains and halation effects and all that stuff. But once you have it exported, it looks quite good. So let me just show you one more example. So I'm just gonna go into this clip right here. I'm gonna right click, add that same LUT I had before. So the Eastman LUT, as you can see, it already has that filmic look because the Phantom LUTs are just so good. They look really, really cinematic, really filmic. So I just like how that one click looks. But now let's drag Dehancer onto this node here and get into our settings. So like I said, at first the input, the film looks, I'm just not a fan of them. As you can see, here are some of the different ones. We have some Fujifilms, all this sort of stuff. I don't love them, disable that. Now I'm gonna go disable the expand, disable the print, disable the color head. I just feel like those slow down the process a little bit, so I don't need them. Now I'm gonna go into the grains, reduce the amount, reduce the shadows, reduce the midtones, and reduce the highlights a little bit. And let's just zoom in here so we can see what is going on with that grain. All right, cool. So that's what's going on. If we turn grain on and off, you can see that's the grain. It looks really nice, really solid grain compared to a lot of different places. So now let's go in and add our halation. So we're gonna enable it. As you can see in this shot, it does tint the other areas that aren't edges a little bit pink, which is normal, but you don't want too much of that. So again, I'm gonna reduce the amplification to like 20, 25. So now we're gonna enable, disable, just adds a tiny bit of that halation look on the edges of the image, which looks really nice in my opinion. And now I'm gonna go into the bloom, click enable. It blooms out the highlights quite a bit here. So on and off, you can see blooms that stuff out. I'm gonna reduce it again to like 25. So now we're gonna look at this image, turn Dehancer off, turn Dehancer on, and that looks pretty dang good in my opinion. Quite filmic, quite film emulation-y, and I'm happy with it. So let me export these clips and show you what they look like. One thing about Dehancer that I mentioned is that it is quite slow and processor heavy, so it can lag down your computer a lot. And a workaround I found to this, which probably isn't the best thing to do, but it speeds up the process a ton, is basically to edit your project in a different platform, say Final Cut Pro, and then export that without any grain or any halation or anything, and then import that full edit with all the cuts already into DaVinci Resolve, apply just one instance of Dehancer to that whole project, and then work through that. And because it's already exported, already compressed, it works so much faster, and you basically just have to do all these effects one single time, and then you can just export that project and it will have the film emulation on the whole thing. That's probably not ideal. You're definitely gonna lose a little bit of resolution that way, but it's a quick workaround if you have a short timetable and you don't wanna go through each individual clip adding this Dehancer to. So just a little tip. But with that said, that's basically it. Let me just show you a quick montage of some clips I used with Dehancer and just see how good it looks and judge for yourself.
Does she know who we are? Does she care a damn about? We are here to see her smile, not a single cry. She's definitely from another place. She's definitely from another place. She's definitely from another place. Won't you make her smile?
Anyway, that's it for today. If you like this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. The link for Dehancer will also be down below, and I just think it's a great plugin to use inside of DaVinci Resolve to just add a bit more filmic and soft look to your images. I know it is a bit pricey at $400, but there's a free trial, so you can just try it out, see if you like it. And if you like it, it's a pretty dang good plugin that will make your images and your videos look significantly more filmic. So that's pretty cool. All right, I'll see you guys next time.
She's definitely from another place.